Hello everybody, my name is Kayla and I will be giving you guys a speech today on composting. So let's begin. So there's been a really big emphasis on an eco-friendly movement over the past couple of years with the late news of the climate crisis and things happening of the earth like global warming and things like that. And recycling has been a popular talk amongst social media and everywhere about being more eco-friendly, being more sustainable, shopping small, paying attention to your carbon footprint. And so one of those other things is composting. And I first learned about composting when I was in elementary school in our school garden. We had gone out there and we had seen this big compost barrel, which is one of the ways of composting that I will get into later. It always stuck with me in the back of my mind of composting and how I could do it, but I never knew exactly how until I had been seeing a lot of TikToks and videos and Amazon advertisements of these little like at-home composting things that you can put on your counter. And so I decided to learn more about it, and that's why I chose my topic on composting. And basically, how does composting work? What are the environmental effects and benefits? And why is it useful, and how it can promote a sustainable future in life? So, as we all know, having more plants in your home, having more plants around you, being in nature, actually advances your oxygen levels and you can breathe better. But composting can also do that as well. Whether it's outside or whether it's inside the home, it can help you in your breathing and your just better course of life. And so basically, let's go back to the basics of what is composting. So it's essentially a way to make your own soil, but it also benefits the environment by doing so. And so how do you compost is a really big question that gets asked. People know about it, but how do you compost? So there are three main categories or ingredients that you need for composting. So three main ways to do it, and there are three main ingredients to do it. The three main ways to compost are you can either do a drum, you can do indoor, or you can do outdoor, and both take place in little bins like this and like this. This is an example of an outdoor bin as well. And the popular drum, worm, or indoor. So worm composting, also known as vermiposting, you essentially layer your food scraps and you put a layer of worms. There are about 7 species of worms that you can use out of the thousands of worm species. And they basically break down your food scraps and add to your soil. However, you do have to monitor the compost, and some people might not want to buy a bunch of worms and have it be in their compost. So that's one way you could do it. Like I said, you could also do a drum or an indoor. Drums can be indoors or outdoors. Indoor, you can basically just put all of your ingredients in a bin and let it do its work. If you do a drum, you essentially put all of your food scraps in this big drum or barrel like down here, and you just spin it from time to time, and that will help break down your food scraps. Obviously, now that we talk about the food scraps and the ingredients and the ways to compost, we need to talk about what are the ingredients and what are good and bad to put in your compost. So ingredients, you're going to need water, air, and greens and browns. Greens and browns can be identified as greens, which are food, veggie scraps, grass clippings. Some plant like clippings, leaves and stuff would be okay. You can also use coffee grounds, paper tea bags. Please remove the staple if you're going to use paper tea bags, because those obviously can't break down into dirt, and eggshells. Browns, which are more your carbon-rich ingredients, are going to be more elements of the earth and nature. So you're going to have your leaves, your plant stalks, like I said, twigs, shredded paper, cardboards, and untreated woods. And things to avoid. You don't want to put dryer in there. You don't want to put like any cooked food waste. You don't want to put cooked food waste. So like no fried chicken, no mashed potatoes, cooked things like that. Pet waste, meat or fish, fats, oils, or treated woods. Treated woods like vinyls and painted woods are not good because that's not going to be able to break down in the compost. You want to think of things that are going to likely break down back into the earth. And so now that we've gone over all of how to compost, what are the ways to compost and what to put in your compost. Like as you can see, you have your browns, your greens. This goes into your compost along with all of the other elements like water, air, and it breeds microorganisms to break it down. So how does it help the environment after you do all of this? It basically prevents all of these food wastes from going into landfills. Landfills add to so much of the carbon output of the world, which is speeding up climate change. So it prevents it from ending up in landfills. So you're doing your own little part by trying to regenerate some of the food scraps and recycle your food scraps. It also helps with water conservation because composting creates a more rich and dense soil that absorbs more water, and so you're gonna use less water when using composted soil to water your plants. And then after we've gone through basically what are the benefits, well, obviously with everything there's going to be some good and some bad. So drawbacks of composting: it can breed dangerous pathogens if you don't do it right. You can obviously have mold can grow in your compost, and different biohazards and gases can be released from your compost, but this is only if you're adding things that don't belong in the compost. So like I said, a bunch of cooked foods will not break down very well, especially fats, a lot of things with fats and oils. So that can potentially lead to pathogens developing in your compost. As well as it can also lead to an unpleasant smell. Some indoor composts obviously can smell. But that's also due to a lack of oxygen. You are going to have to move around your compost. That's why drum is kind of one of the more advanced ways, because you don't have to physically move around your compost. But yeah, so smells is one of the drawbacks of composting and why some people don't like it. As well as it can cause fires, but this is super uncommon. But the way it causes fire is the compost can get very hot, especially if it's outside, it's summertime. There's a lot of dry ingredients. You got leaves, you have paper, and there's a lack of airflow. It can cause a fire. It's like I said, it's not common. It's really only happens in outdoor composts, but it is something to think of when you're composting. You cannot leave it unattended for long periods of time. And it can bring unwanted pests. A big concern with it is rodents coming, and also just the natural life of, let's say if you're doing it in your garden, like here and here, these are in gardens, it can bring pests and rodents and snakes as well. Some are compost friendly and some are not, so that's another drawback of composting. But essentially, I really liked this research topic and this speech topic, and I chose it because I wanted to learn about composting because I didn't know too much about it. So this allowed me to research it and really gain a better understanding about it. And it's also something that I would like to pursue in the future. I lived in an apartment right now, so I always thought that composting wasn't going to be a solution for me because I don't have the space outdoors, but you can do an indoor compost and it can still be a great compost and can be useful. So yeah, and also it's gonna really, really help in the future with the climate change crises and being more sustainable in everyday life. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my speech on composting, and goodbye, thank you.